As you might have heard, Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. How corrupt are they? Ukraine is so corrupt that, according to Foreign Policy magazine, they're still too corrupt to join the West. That's how corrupt Ukraine is. Transparency International ranked Ukraine at 104 out of 180 countries in the corruption index for 2023, far worse than members of the European Union, whom Ukraine wishes to join as an equal. Denmark was ranked as the least corrupt, Germany at number 9, Estonia at number 12, France at number 20. Ukraine, 104 out of 180 countries on corruption. That's who we're sending billions of dollars to. Now, you might remember Cy Hirsch a couple of years ago wrote an article claiming that all the generals are driving around in Mercedes and BMWs in Ukraine, that people are setting up front defense contract companies to get that money. We don't know if that's true. That's what he reported. But now Zelensky defends bill stripping anti-corruption bodies' independence amid protests. Here's a video.
Gathered here in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. They are here not to demand surrender in Russia's war against Ukraine that began more than 3 years ago. They are here to protest against the actions of their own government. This all comes after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky signed the bill into law that critics say would weaken the anti-corruption infrastructure. People are very furious, as you see, and the public outrage is connected to the fact that this infrastructure, and also other institutions, they were built after Ukraine's revolution in 2014. So for them, it's also destroying their values, the values of democracy that are also the foundation in the war and the resistance against Russian invasion.
Can't ask them to shut the fuck up in the background for 2 seconds while she does
Hey, quiet, guys, quiet. I'm on camera. Volodymyr Zelensky has defended his approval of a contentious bill that weakens Ukraine's anti-corruption bodies, as its passage into law triggered the first serious protests against his government. The move on Tuesday has put the president on a collision course with civil society activists and some of Ukraine's veterans, and is likely to dismay Ukraine's European partners. On Tuesday, Ukraine's parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, passed a controversial bill that effectively removes the independence of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, known as NABU, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. It gives sweeping new powers to Ukraine's prosecutor general and makes it easier for the government to control which cases are pursued. Critics say the legislation allows political interference and is a major step backwards in the fight against corruption. Late on Tuesday, Zelensky signed the bill into law, rejecting calls for him to use his presidential veto. In his nightly video address, issued well after midnight, Zelensky said he had spoken with the NABU chief, Semen Kryvonos, and other top prosecutors. Anti-corruption bodies, Zelensky said, would continue to function, but without any Russian influence. It all must be cleansed. Without those Russians, you'd have to invent them, right? They're a very convenient shield to hide behind. Earlier, about 1,500 protesters gathered next to Zelensky's presidential administration complex. They shouted slogans outside his window, including "shame" and "veto the law," and waved homemade banners denouncing the bill. There were protests in other large cities, including Dnipro, Lviv, and Odessa. If the bill goes ahead, it will make it harder for Ukraine to join the European Union. We will go back to dictatorship, said Sasha Kazantseva before Zelensky reportedly gave his approval. You're kind of already there in the dictatorship, I hate to tell you. Ukraine's application to join the EU is dependent on the progress it makes in fighting corruption. Since 2022, EU countries have provided Kyiv with significant military and economic support running into billions of euros. The European Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta Kos, criticized the bill's adoption. So here's Lord Bebo's tweet on this. Ukrainian parliament passed a law that effectively eliminates anti-corruption agencies. Both these agencies, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, are now stripped of their independence and will now turned into government law enforcement agencies. Corruption prosecution will now happen with direct approval by the corrupt government. Again, this is centralizing corruption investigations within a government that is ranked in the bottom half of corruption worldwide. Revolutionary Blackout Network. Zelensky has banned the right to collectively bargain, opposition parties, oppositional media, and now he is planning to dismantle anti-corruption bodies in government. Zelensky and the Banderite Nazis have turned Ukraine into a full-blown fascist stage. This is what the NATO left is in support of. Yes, of course, this is part of the absurdity of arguing that you're fighting for freedom and democracy in Ukraine, of all places. Before this war started, it was long identified as the most corrupt country in Europe, as a country rife with corruption. And since the war started, Zelensky has shut down opposition parties and he shut down freedom of the press. What you got yourself here is a corrupt dictatorship that you're defending. You're not defending any kind of a democracy. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Huge protests erupt in Kyiv against Ukrainian President Zelensky as he is a dictator and refuses to make a peace deal and end the war. Good for the Ukrainian people. Throw him out of office. And America must stop funding and sending weapons. Didn't she vote to fund and send weapons the last time a vote came up? Didn't she make a lot of noise about how she wasn't gonna?
No, you're confusing it. I mean, maybe, but I think what you're thinking of is you're thinking of the War Powers resolution. Making a lot of noise about how we can't grant the president the authority to go to war, and then she voted against it anyway because she didn't think he was going to.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Just like the Democrats did with George Bush. Well, we didn't vote for the Iraq War. We voted to give him the authority, thinking he wouldn't do it. We trusted him to make the right call. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And the Russian embassy in Kenya, nothing says democracy at war like abolishing anti-corruption agencies during martial law, banning protests, and concentrating power in a tight circle, all while missiles fly overhead. Bravo, Kyiv regime. Even G7 ambassadors raised an eyebrow this time. So that's a pretty good troll from the Russians. I'll tell you, the Russians are known for their spying. They should also be known for their trolling.
Yes, they do troll well.
They do. They're pretty good trolls. Yeah, it's amazing how blatant Ukraine is willing to be, because very much like Israel, they're confident the money and weapons will keep coming no matter what they do. If they were really worried that there are lines they can't cross without getting cut off, they would not do this. They would not. It is so clear when you are known for your corruption how dangerous it is to centralize corruption investigations in the government. If they had any fear that perception might hurt their financing, they wouldn't do it. They know no matter what they do, they'll keep getting financing. There is this illusion that people have with the complicity of the corporate media that Ukraine is some bastion of freedom and democracy is freaking absurd. I mean, people are just not told. Like, this is where you want to talk about the media being the enemy of the people. They are. They are. I mean, not for the reasons Donald Trump will tell you they are, but they are. They're not the American public. I have not seen the libs get whipped up into a real lib frenzy like they did when Trump dressed down Zelensky in the Oval Office since the height of Russiagate, man. They are hypnotized. They are hypnotized and brainwashed because they're never told these things. When you going to turn on CNN and see a story about how there's actually no freedom of the press in Ukraine, how
Right.
how it's rife with corruption, how they have Nazi battalions, which they justify by saying better to work with them. Like, when do you see stories like that? People don't understand what we're supporting. They really don't.
Well, not only that, but as time goes on, of course they're going to double down on getting more corrupt, and of course they're going to double down on crushing not only any dissent but any inquiry into the
Right.
extent of their corruption. Because don't forget, they're going to be dealing with a population that understands that their government just destroyed generations of their country
Right.
in order to fight a war that they never had any chance to win, because their president is a comedian who Boris Johnson and Kamala Harris tricked into thinking that he was going to be the 21st century's Winston Churchill. Like, the backlash against the Ukrainian government is just going to be seismic. I mean, they destroyed their country. They're pulling people off the streets, throwing them to the front lines to be killed. They're taking fighters in their 50s now. They got no men left. Like, the country is destroyed. Right. So of course you're going to have to double down on corruption. It's the only way you're going to hang on to power is by becoming more corrupt and more draconian in your enforcement against people who question it and who call it out, because you're not going to be able to keep the society going on goodwill alone. There's not going to be any. How could there be? How could there be? It's only a matter of time before they accept defeat. I don't say that because I want it to be true. I have no dog in that fight, right? But I say that because that's obvious. That's obvious.
Well,
right?
if you look
the
at
government's not going to be able to hold the society together absent rampant corruption.
Right. And if you look at what Zelensky said there, he's really giving away the game. What do you mean we have to remove Russian influence? What the fuck? Do you have evidence that there's Russian influence in the corruption agencies?
Right.
That really points towards what a post-war Ukrainian society would look like, right? You'll just run it in this corrupt way and just hide behind Russia whenever you have to justify your corruption. I mean, it's what they're doing now. But this is what we are funding for the future. If there is a Ukraine in the future, that's what it's going to look like. Yeah, no, we can't empower these people. Russia. Right. They're Russian. They're Russian agents, very much like here.
Right. Exactly.
Please clap.